looping, scheduling, routine versus rhythm, traditional schedule, block schedule, year-round, Sabbath school. There's so many choices out there when it comes to scheduling, and I thought I'd take a few minutes to share what schedules have worked for us in the past and might be a help for you if you're trying to figure out how to schedule your homeschool. Welcome back to Wholehearted Homemaking. My name is Heather, and today I want to share all about what has worked and hasn't worked for us in scheduling, because it seems like every year that we have homeschooled, we have had a different schedule. And part of that is because we continue to add to our family and change where we are. We've had a lot of changes over the last several years, 6 actually, since we've been homeschooling, and we just have to make it fit to work with our certain time periods. When you have a new baby, things have to look different, and I'm not going to get into all of that. I can, if you're interested, leave me a comment below and I'll share about that in another video. But today I wanted to talk to you about a couple of different scheduling concepts, and the first one I wanted to talk to you about was the annual scheduling. Now, we live in Indiana, and our only requirement is 180 days within 365 days. They can all come at the beginning, they can be in the middle, they can be dispersed. It doesn't matter as long as we record 180 days of grade equivalent schooling. And so that gives you a lot of freedom. But with that, you kind of have to have a mindset. Am I going to follow the traditional school calendar of maybe your local school? Or are you going to follow a year-round pattern? Or are you going to try something called Sabbath Mood? So I want to talk to you about those 3 particular ones. There are other kinds of scheduling out there for your annual calendar. Those are the 3 we've done. And we've done the traditional schooling where we follow a regular school method. That's actually what we're going to be sort of doing this year. And we're going to follow it for our start date, but not necessarily for our breaks throughout the week. There are a lot of benefits to a traditional school schedule. If you follow your local schooling, then if you live in an area where you have a lot of kids present, your kids are off when their kids are off, and your kids are in school when their kids are in school. So your friends are all following the same schedule. And so that's kind of the benefit to the traditional schedule. Some of the drawbacks are that you're off school when everyone else is off school. So you don't get a lot of the freedom that you might get when everybody else is at school and the playground or the park or the amusement park or whatever it may be are empty because everybody else is in school. So that's something to balance with. The other option is year-round schooling. Now, year-round schooling, a lot of people do it different ways. Basically, you're taking that concept of, I've got 365 days to fit in 180 days. And so I'm going to do school as needed, and we'll take breaks as needed. And we have done this in the past to an extent. And that's kind of how we follow our traditional schedule too, which I'll show you here in a minute on my calendar. But a year-round schooling, you're going to take the whole year and you're just going to say, okay, we've got to get 180 days in, so maybe we're going to do 4 days this week, but then we're going to go camping for 3 days next week, and then we'll do 2 days, and you are a little more freeing with your schedules, and that works for a lot of people. It hasn't worked for our family so much. Sorry, their kids are outside. But that particular schedule hasn't worked for us just because we do need some set rhythms. My husband and I are very calendar-based people, partially because we're in full-time ministry and we have set things we have to do in our calendar. The last one, which is what we have done primarily, is the Sabbath schooling, which is where you do 6 weeks of school and then a week off, 6 weeks of school and then a week off. We took it a step farther where we did 6 weeks of school, break, 6 weeks of school, break, then a 6-week break at Christmas, and then 6 weeks of school, break, 6 weeks of school, break, 6 weeks of school, 6-week break for summer, and then we start again. And that has actually been our favorite and best working one. Our breaks end up lining up slightly before or slightly after school breaks. That extra time at Christmas has been wonderful, especially with little kids, so that we can focus on Christmas and holiday activities, getting family gifts made, and all those different handicrafts and special events. And that has worked wonderfully for us. And honestly, we would continue doing that. I just needed a longer summer break this year. And that's what I wanted to show you, because the main thing, no matter which way you choose to go, is you got to figure out what's going to be your official start date. We're going to start on this day and we're going to go to when. And what we're going to do is kind of encompass this year for our family something between traditional and Sabbath moon, Sabbath kind of scheduling. And so what I do is I print out my calendars. You can get these free from Amanda at our Cooper Nest. There's a lot, you can get free ones anywhere. I like hers because they have these lines underneath. And basically my goal when I do my planning is to start with our end date. I know that sounds backwards, but it really works for me. And so usually what I do is I say, okay, we want to be off by Thanksgiving. And so I count back our 6 weeks, then break week, 6 weeks, break week, and whatever. And that usually landed in July. This year we're taking a longer break. My kids are going to still be at Bible camp in the summer. And so I couldn't do that method. So I said, instead this year, we picked a start date. The same goes within the spring semester. We have birthdays at the end of May, and so we try to finish school before those birthdays. That's our goal. So I count backwards and try to fit it all in. And so sometimes we would start, December 29th. Sometimes we would start January 4th. Just, depends on how that counted out in our schedule. This year, what I'm doing different, I am kind of combining my Sabbath moon mindset with a bit of a year-round mindset around a traditional, it's like a turducken here. I'm picking a start date. We are going to start on July 29th, the last week of July. And then I am going to roughly follow my 6 weeks of school and a week off model to an extent, but I'm going to give us leeway to have time off when we need it and just follow it. And my goal is to keep track. I use Amanda at our Cooper Nest record, her, what do you call it? School planner, and it has an attendance log. And so I'm going to just keep track of it that way and be a little bit more freewheeling with when our breaks are, so that it's not always the 6th week, but that we will make sure we take regular time off in 2, 3 to 5 day periods. So that way we aren't getting overwhelmed, but I'm wanting to be a little bit more free with our time. I'm just counting those days. I have a incoming freshman, and so I'm trying to be very mindful of my time with her. So that's what we're doing. And those are the 3 traditional schedule, year-round schooling and Sabbath. And I hope that makes sense. If you have a question, let me know. I wanted to also touch on daily schedules because we've done this, that, and everything. So I'm going to look at my notes real quick. So there are a couple of different ones that we've tried. So there's the traditional or block scheduling, depending on what kind of school you grew up in. So the traditional way I have math hour, history hour, science hour, and that works really well if you have your kids in their own programs, or I don't know. I'm not a fan of that one. So it works well if they all have their own programs. It would work well if you have a very school at home mentality. It would also work very well if you just trying to keep everybody on a specific schedule. That works. You could do blocking, which is kind of what I did in school, where you would have 4 subjects one day and then 4 subjects the next day, and then you rotate through it that way. That's another daily schedule you can utilize, and those are what are utilized by our school system today. There are pros and cons to those, and I'm pretty sure most of you who've seen this know what the pros and cons are because you grew up in the public school. There are very few of you probably who are watching and did not grow up, and if you have questions, let me know. But they're very highly structured, and there is a specific line item for each time period is what you're looking at there. The other option would be to do a relaxed or a rhythm-based schedule. And this is what we tried to embrace our first year, but I'm kind of a let's go catch the butterflies person, and it didn't work well for me. It works well for my kids to have a rhythm. It doesn't work well for me to have a rhythm. I need to put some time limits on myself. Otherwise, we will read poetry all day, or we will paint all day, which isn't bad, but we neglect math when we do that. And so you have more of a loose structure, and so you have this is what we do in the morning, this is what we do in the afternoon. Like I said, that's how my kids see it. They see that we have independent time, and then we have morning time, and then they know the rhythm. So much so that they do it even in the summer. So they know the rhythm, but they don't know that I have particular timestamps on a lot of these things. They can do as many times for how many times per week per subject if you want. You keep it very loose in a rhythms relaxed schedule. So then another daily schedule option is looping, where would be kind of more like that block schedule, where I'm going to do some subjects this day, and then I'm going to do some subjects the next day, and then I'm going to loop back to those first subjects again. And that is really a wonderful, like I said, there are drawbacks to it, but that is a wonderful way to get in a plethora of subjects, and it is one that we have utilized repeatedly. You can get many subjects per day. You need to make a list if you're going to do that. But you can do a daily and a loop. You can do all kinds of different things with that. The next thing is to do a checklist. And I actually have a checklist here somewhere. The checklist in part with my kids. And so they have a to-do. They have what they have to do in the morning, the to-do, and then they have the readings here. This works well for my kids, sometimes for their independent time. And I know some people do that for their entire day. Their children do a lot of their work on their own. And so they give them a checklist, they do their work, and they're done. I actually babysat a kid who would get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and he would have all his schoolwork done at 7 so that he could play video games the rest of his day, and the parents were okay with that. It works. Checklists can work. Not everybody's going to go let their kids go play video games, but the checklist is really great for those type A children, for families who are doing, like I said, a lot of independent work. It doesn't work quite as well if you're doing a lot of group work. The other one is a daily theme, and that's actually where we're going. And I have an example of one we did in the past. So on the daily theme, you could do like a math day. Okay, you have to do math every day, guys. I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you, but you really need to do some kind of math every day. But you could do a history day, a science day, a nature day, an art day, whatever you want to call it. So what I did, and I don't know if you could tell, but I have academy days, which were more of our focused learning, those discipline areas. And then I had an art day and a nature day and an adventure day. And at this point, we were doing adventure day on Saturday, which is what we currently do as well. And so I had all little kids when I used this. I found this from 2020, actually. And so we would have a nature day where we took all of our schoolwork with us. And it was all mostly nature related or geography related, but I would also take literature and math with us. And that's what we would do it on our nature day out. Art day would be the same thing. It would be all art related things. We do our artist study, poetry, a fine arts lesson, composer. We do some nature journaling, Shakespeare, Spanish, kind of those beauty subjects if you want to keep going. And that has worked really well for us, which is why we're returning to that schedule this year. It's seasons, it ebbs and flows, and that's just the way it is. And I wish I could be more encouraging in that for your daily schedule. You kind of have to just know your personal rhythms and also what works best for your family. Like I said, for our family, we're going back to doing the subject kind of days. And with that, we will be looping. And so we will share more about that in detail as I finalize everything, because I'm still working on that. And we don't find out about music lessons until September. So once I learn that, everything changes again. But I hope that this has given you a little insight into how to plan your annual schedule and also your daily schedule. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. If you have experience with any of these, pro or con, leave those below. It really helps others. I know when I was first starting homeschooling, I desperately wanted to know what's the best way. There is no best way. There is a best way for your family, but it may not be the same from one year to the other. It may not be the same from one season to the other, and it definitely will most likely not be the same as mine. But this may give you some ideas on what to do. So, all right, as a recap, we have the annual schedules where you have traditional, a year-round, or Sabbath schedule. If you have any questions about those or how to utilize them, let me know. I'm happy to help. I love planning and scheduling, and I can talk you through what has worked and didn't work for us specifically in different seasons. The other options are for daily schedules. You can do the traditional schedule, a relaxed or rhythm type schedule. You can try to do a looping schedule or a theme day schedule, or again, a combination of those. It's a lot of trial and error and trying to weigh what is important to you in each particular season. What works for you one season may not work the next season. What works in the newborn stages is probably not going to work in the toddler stages. Those newborn stages are sweet in the homeschooling world. And so I encourage you to be okay to change things, even a couple weeks into school. It's all right. Be willing to change and find what works for you so that there is peace in your home, because that is the ultimate goal, that we have some peace during these quiet growing years with our children. All right, I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Let us go forth and strive to serve the Lord and our families wholeheartedly.